Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to On the Spot Motorsports Media. Tonight we have a wonderful guest. We have Tami Bandimere joining us. We're going to talk about Bandimere Raceway. They got a great thing that's happening this year, their 65th anniversary of the track. But before we get to all of that, we always want to thank our sponsors at the beginning. And we're going to go through those real quick. The first one up is Miracle Automotive Towing here in Stark, Florida. Hey, they can take care of all your automotive needs. Hey, and if you're on the side of the road and you're needing help, you don't have to pray for a miracle. Just call Miracle at 904-368-1114. We also want to thank On the Spot Lawn Maintenance, full service lawn care for you. Hey, if you need your grass mowed, it's growing right now. We're starting to get all the rains. And give David a call at 904-966-1633. Also, Team GRE, Goolsby Racing Enterprises. Hey, if you need something for your car or you need your store windows done, lettered, give them a call at 352-870-7258.
60 years of innovation, 60 years of attention to detail, 60 years of rigorous testing under race conditions is what makes ATI Performance Products great. ATI has been helping racers like you reach the finish line first. Today, we manufacture a wide range of high-performance parts that are track-tested and race-proven. We're passionate about performance, and that passion is what drives you to the finish line first. See everything ATI has to offer at ATIRacing.com.
Well, I want to thank you, Miss Bandimere, for coming on tonight and, discussing about the 65-year anniversary of the Speedway. What a great history. I was going back and doing a lot of research, and man, what a following. Talk a little bit about your grandfather, who actually purchased the land back in 1958 to build this drag strip to promote safety, pretty much kind of like Wally Park's done in the beginning with the salt flats and finding the NHRA.
Yeah, well, and thank you for having me on and for sharing our family story, because it is, in fact, I even brought our logo. So you can see our 65th anniversary logo that we have this year. And I brought a couple of decals for some of the racers. But so thank you. Thank you for asking me to be on. But, my grandpa, he was from a family of farmers, and he really wasn't that interested in farming. He was a lot more interested in the tractor and making the tractor perform better than he was in farming the fields. And his brother had a piece of property that was actually a little further to the north of where we're at right now. It was a perfect piece of property. In 1956, he got all the permitting for it and everything. And once he started moving dirt and the neighbors realized what was about to come into their neighborhood, they kind of decided that they wanted to boycott and get him out of there. And my grandfather, being who he was, he really realized that he didn't want to fight with the neighbors for the rest of his life. So he had talked to the commissioners, the county commissioners, and said, look, I'm going to withdraw all my permitting. You find me a better piece of property and let me look at it, and I'll move this place. And they found him the piece of property that we're at right now, which is just beautiful. It's up against the Hogback Mountain. We've got development on just one side of us. We're tucked up against the mountain. In fact, if you stand on our starting line and climb over the Hogback Mountain, you're at Red Rocks Amphitheater. So we're in the foothills area, and it's just such a beautiful area. But when that property was, when my grandfather started moving dirt at where we're at right now, that Rudy Road that went in front of us was a dirt road, and there was really nothing out there. I mean, it was pretty much just us and some of the other landowners around there. But the thing is that my grandparents, and my grandmother was just as instrumental in starting the facility as my grandfather was, because I like to tell the story that my grandmother loved my grandfather. My grandfather loved cars, and they both loved Jesus, and they both wanted to be able to have a place where they could share that passion and that love with young people. And the one thing that really bothered my grandfather is that there was a lot of street racing going on, and he knew that because my dad was street racing. And so he really wanted, in fact, my dad always says that my grandfather was probably the coolest dad that a young man could have in the 50s and 60s, because my grandfather was so into doing high performance stuff to cars without paying the high performance price. And we had 5 auto parts stores in the Denver area during that time. And, there was a lot of that going on. A lot of people wanting to soup up their cars. And my grandfather loved to supercharge things. And so the racetrack actually started out called the Safety Proving Grounds of America. And my grandfather sold $25 lifetime memberships to his buddies in order to fund some of it. And I think we're done honoring those. I don't think we have anybody that's still around that is a SPGA card carrying lifetime membership person, but that's what he did, and he moved the dirt himself. And then my grandmother passed away in 1965. He kind of lost interest in it. And then my dad kind of resurrected the facility on the weekends in the 70s. And so, we started running it as a racetrack, as a business.
You mentioned those cards. If anybody out there that has one of those cards, hey, they can send it down to Don Garlett's museum, and he will definitely have it displayed on the wall.
No
and
doubt.
also, you'll have the Motorsports Hall of Fame there in Colorado as well. Is a great place to have those displayed.
You're exactly right. Isn't it funny, though, the history of stuff like that and the people that, we wrote a book about 10 years ago, and I actually spearheaded that because I have a reading program for elementary age kids out at the racetrack called Race to Read. And, so many times when my dad would get on the public address system during downtime, and he would start telling stories, and people would say, is there a book that has all these stories in there? And we're like, who would ever pay for something like that? And then I got to thinking about it, and I thought, there's a lot of these people that were part of the history of who we are, and they're getting older, and they have some really good stories. And I think we need to tap into that. So we did. We wrote a book about 10 years ago. It's called Living It Loud. And since we've written that book, we've lost probably a half a dozen of people that contributed to that book. So, those are those legacy pieces that you're kind of glad you did when you did it.
Right. And I love history. I really do in general, not just motorsports, but when you look at motorsports, you can see how far we have came, and it's still a very short time. And, as far as safety as well, of making the cars safer for the drivers and for the crew that work on them. It's a really neat thing to jump back and look at what some of these drivers and crew members had to go through compared to what it is today.
Well, and sadly enough, sometimes it takes a tragedy to make those safety changes. So you think back to, certain things that we've done because of losing somebody, and so the racers today are far better because of some of those kinds of things, the people that have gone before them. But yeah, I mean, when we first had it, we had metal guard wall all the way down the racetrack. And now we have the required concrete, guard wall all the way down the end of the racetrack. You've got now your sand pit at the end of the racetrack. You've got, just so many things that came about because something bad happened, and you needed to make sure that it didn't happen again.
Now, one of the other great milestones of y'all's track was in 1968 when the NHRA came in and made y'all a sanctioned track. Can you tell us a little bit about how that all went and how that happened?
I shouldn't tell you this, but I was only 6 years old when that happened. But I do remember hearing the story of my dad saying that what it did is it validated us, and it gave us the opportunity then to have some validation when we ran races. And we started by racing just on Fridays and Saturdays because my grandfather had a belief that he would not race on Sundays, and that's a whole story in itself, which I can share with you if you want me to. But he just literally would not race on Sundays, and so we would race on Fridays and Saturdays, and we did quite well. And that's when we still had the auto parts stores in the Denver area. And then once some of these franchise auto parts stores started, catching traction, so to speak, we just realized that we were going to probably end up, there was that venture was going to be fairly short-lived. So we ended up selling our auto parts business. We had a machine shop and that kind of thing, and a warehouse, and ended up selling that, and then focused our efforts solely on the racetrack. And so then, in 1978, we ended up, NHRA said, we'd kind of like to run a national event at your facility, but we're not exactly sure. We're at 5,800 feet, 5,830 to be exact. So we are very, very high. And they weren't exactly sure if the racers would be willing to come to our facility, because racers like to go fast, and at our altitude, it was going to be quite the challenge, And so in 1978, we ran the first Mile High Sports Nationals, and that included everything except for the professional categories. And it was very well attended, and it was very well received. And so then in 1979, we became a full-on Mile High Nationals, and we've never looked back.
Right, and who wouldn't want to race there? I mean, it's just a beautiful facility. I mean, it's just great. The only other place that I know maybe come close to that, to y'all's track, is maybe Bristol. It's got that same kind of vibe and feel to it. Um, you was mentioned about 1979, holding the first nationals there. But y'all done something really great in 73 is when y'all held an event for high school drags.
That's such a funny story. Oh my goodness. Okay, so my grandfather, of course, he loved young people, and he taught at a vocational school that was not far from us. He called Warren Tech, and he, I mean, again, here's this guy that's teaching them how to do high performance stuff to their cars without paying the high performance price. Because if you knew my grandfather and you knew his story was that kids are given baseballs and footballs and basketballs, and they're told,
Right.
hit it, kick it, throw it. And then they're given a car and they're told, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, you can't do that. And so that kind of bothered him. And he also realized that not every kid's a jock. Not every kid is a stick and ball kid, and there are some kids that really enjoy the mechanics of the automobile, or, the engineering of that and that kind of thing. So anyway, he had some kids from a local high school that said, "Hey, Mr. Bandimere, on Memorial Day, would it be okay if we invited some of our friends and we came out and we, had like a little, had a race out here at the track?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, sure, that's not a problem." So the first year, I think there was like maybe 15 kids that came out, and that was fine, that was manageable. The next year, the Peterson family, who owns the property right across the street from us, we're all at home. I mean, it's Memorial Day. It's a holiday. And the Petersons call and they go, "What is your dad doing across the street?" And my dad goes, "I don't know. What are you talking about?" He goes, "They said there's cars lined up all the way down Rooney Road." And my dad says to my brother and sister and I and my mom, "Get your clothes on. We got to go out to the track." And we went out to the track, and he had, I bet there was over 150 kids that were out there racing. And I'm not kidding you. It was chaos. And that was the birth of our All-American High School Drag Racing Series. And it has been our longest running racing series that we've had out at the racetrack. And it would bring him so much joy to know that every Memorial Day we still run the All-American High School Drag Racing Series. And at one point, we used to have almost 700 kids that would come out to race at that race. They
Wow.
would show up the night before and camp out, and we would literally have to cut off entries at about 11 o'clock because there's just no way we could get everybody in. Because the theory is give them 2 time trials and then go into eliminations. Well, you just can't do that. You absolutely can't do that with that many cars, and it was absolute chaos. But over the years, we've noticed that, kids don't get their driver's licenses like they used to. And they're so much into the social media thing, and hopefully that's starting to come back a little bit. But now we're down to about maybe 250, 300 high school racers on a Memorial Day, which, hey, is perfect because it's a fun experience. It's something that you can actually enjoy as opposed to going, I don't know where I'm supposed to be, what I'm supposed to do, but yeah, that was the birth of our high school drag racing series.
And I tell you, I think it's really neat. We have the junior street classes throughout all the NHRA sanctioned tracks now, and trying to get kids more and more involved because there for a while I was worried about our sport, but the past couple of years I've seen a increase of kids being interested in it and wanting to be part of Junior Dragsters program, wanting to do the junior streets, or even young adults to come out to run no box classes. And that's great for a sport. Used to, you look up in the stands and you've seen that everyone's like in their 30s and 40s and above. And now a lot of parents are bringing their kids out. They're enjoying it. And hopefully that will continue with them when they grow up. They bring their kids out so we can keep, motorsports alive and well.
Yep, I agree. And you're right. The junior street class, because some of those kids, once they go into junior street, they don't go back to junior dragster because they're just like, I'm in a big car now. I kind of want to. And so that's that natural progression into the next phase of competition. So yeah, it's great.
And, I get a joy of watching the kids, graduate out of the juniors and start getting in the box classes. Sarah Allen, she is now running Alcohol Dragster. So it's really neat. And she started out in the junior. I love hearing those stories and watching kids develop and stay in the sport.
Yeah.
Now, this is the one cool thing I wanted to talk about. Mopar. When they came on board in 1989, man, that was probably one of the greatest deals. And it's still running right now. Still going on. The Mopar.
35 years.
Right.
Yep. So that was a huge blessing for our family. And again, you talk about validation. I mean, we, for years, Colorado talked about putting a highway somewhere out along the mountain there. And, they would come out and they would survey and they would pound stakes in the ground, and then everything would blow away and nothing would happen. And finally in 1987, they got serious. They were like, we need to build a highway. So of course, we knew that it was going to impact us in some way. We just didn't know how much it was going to impact us. But we had a meeting as a family, and we just kind of felt like God wasn't done with us yet. That we weren't done with racing yet, that we still had a few good years left in us. So we decided that, up until that point, we had kind of, I shouldn't say band-aided, but we had kind of band-aided stuff out at the track because, why do you want to invest a lot of money in this if the highway is going to condemn this part of your property? So you kind of got to be pretty good steward of your funds. So once we knew exactly where the highway was going to go, they did condemn some of our property, but then they gave us some property to compensate for it. we decided that we're going to undergo a multi-million-dollar, renovation of the facility. So we did. And so we we started moving stuff. Now, bear in mind that the only thing that stayed in the same place was the drag strip and the buildings that our offices are in. Everything else, we literally just like took everything down, and we asked NHRA if they would allow us to take a sabbatical for 1988 because there was just no sense in dragging people out there. We didn't have the space. It was just a mess. And NHRA granted us a year sabbatical so that we could do that. And we just completely reconfigured the track. Our pit area used to be down, when you first come into the facility, and we moved the pit area up to the upper level and then moved our parking from the upper level down to the lower level, which makes it for such a unique experience for racers that are attending the race. Because if they want to watch the races, they literally just walk to the edge of the mountain and they can look over and watch the races wherever they're at along that whole ridge, So that's right. really, really kind of a unique thing. But anyway, so then Mopar came on board with us, in 1989, and they were super excited. They're going to be at this brand new facility in Denver, Colorado, Morrison, Colorado, and they're going to be our main sponsor. I remember one of the men that was high up in the ranks there at Mopar. He and his family were on vacation, and I think it was sometime around May or June, and they stopped by just to see how we were doing. And it was a train wreck. I mean, seriously, because we knew we had 5 weeks to get everything done. But, and bear in mind, in the middle of all this, we lost all of our permanent financing because of the savings and loan situation that happened in Texas. So we had everything in place, and we lost all of our permanent financing. And so we had contractors and workers that walked off the job for almost 3 weeks. And when you're on that type of a time crunch, you just are thinking, oh my goodness, how is this going to happen?
You start to panic a little bit.
Oh, yeah. I mean, we're selling tickets. We're doing this. It's going to happen. Is it going to happen? Are we going to even have a racetrack? I mean, oh my goodness gracious. So I remember he said to my dad, he goes, now you will have this ready to go. And my dad's like, oh yeah, we got it under control. And I remember my dad saying, I didn't know if we did. I just really honestly didn't know if we were. But he says, there's something about confidence. And he goes, I just was like, trusting that this was going to happen. And sure enough, I mean, literally, oh my goodness, they came in. It was beautiful. We had a beautiful event. We had to re-pour some asphalt afterwards because some of the asphalt that we poured was like less than 24 hours old. And it took a good beating, and that kind of thing. Right. I remember my sister, my mom, my sister-in-law, and I, we cleaned the suites. We were the hospitality people. I mean, you just did what you had to do to make the event pull off, And over the years, we've had the Mopar Mile High Nationals, the Mopar Parts Mile High Nationals, the Dodge Mile High Nationals, the Dodge SRT Mile High Nationals, the Dodge Power Broker. I mean, we've gone through probably every department that they have in Chrysler, but we have the longest running national event sponsorship in the history of NHRA through the Chrysler Corporation. And this is our 35th year with them.
Oh yeah. And that right there is just awesome. Sometimes it's pretty rough to try to find someone to sponsor a national event, and to have them for that long, 35 years, just goes to show you that they have trust also in y'all owning the track as well.
Well, and it's all about relationships. That. I mean, everyone that's tuning in knows that as well, is that, you never burn a bridge, and you make sure that you treat people right, and you treat them with integrity. And you're right, it's trust. And they know that we'll be honest with them, and that we'll, and we've worked with them. And golly, we've had so many different people that we've worked with at Mopar, and at Chrysler, and, that kind of thing. But they all come in knowing that who they're dealing with. I mean, we're the same. They're all changing, but we're the same. So, they know that they've got that constant. So it works well.
All right, I want to talk a little bit about some a little about some history, going back to the first 4-second pass there. And that was done by Lori Johns. She actually ran a 4.991. And another person that we're all familiar with that's still around in racing is John Force. He was the first one to run over 300 miles an hour there at Mile High.
And he put stand after he ran that run.
Whoop. Hold on just a second. She'll be right back. Give us just a second, and she'll be right back. And, we were talking about Lori Johns. Went out there, and no one had made a 4-second pass run before. Talking about the elevation difference and the kind of strain that it puts on these motors. She went out there and ran a 4.99, and after that, years later, John Force in 1989, I believe it was, had the first 300 mile an hour pass. And so that was also very remarkable of him to do that. Sorry about that.
That's all right. I'm back. All of a sudden I was telling a story and it went away, and I was like, oh, I don't know if I didn't touch anything, so I didn't know what I did, what happened. So good. I'm glad you figured it out.
But I was, still carrying on this conversation, talking about Lori Johns and talking about John Force. He made that pass in 98, I think. He went 301 miles an hour.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I think I was starting to tell you that he actually put it in the sand when he made that run, and he was actually irritated. He got out of the car. I remember him getting out of the car going, I can't believe I put that in the sand. I can't believe that. And we're like, you made the first 300 mile an hour run. Well, I can't still believe I put it. It's like, what are you gonna say?
I tell you one thing about John,
the greatest Force, of all time, whatever.
And he is so good with the fans. I mean, he absolutely loves the fans, and and I remember standing there one day and amongst the crowd, and my little boy was getting autographed by him, and he says, "This right here is the reason why I love doing this. Mm-hmm. It is for these kids." Mm-hmm. He says, "That's what I like doing it for."
Yeah. The thing about John is that, as crazy as he gets and as out of control as he gets at times, he always remembers where he came from. And that will never leave him, that he literally clawed his way to the top. I remember him coming into Colorado and actually staying at our house because he couldn't afford, we'd book him in for a race, and he couldn't afford to stay at a hotel. And my dad's like, well, you're not sleeping in your truck. So he would stay at our house. And, but back then, I shouldn't say this, but he was kind of a nobody. He really was a nobody. And who would have ever guessed that he'd become, who he is today? But he remembers where he came from. And I think that's really important.
Yeah, it took a lot of hard work, and he believed in himself, and he knew what it took to be able to become what he is today. A 16-time champion, and no telling, mm-hmm. He may be 17 after this year. And it's funny. Someone asked me, said, "When do you think John's going to retire from racing?" I said, "Well, I do know a few years back, John Force said that he was not going to stop racing until they put the last nail in the coffin." So I imagine he's going to be as around as long as he possibly can. Just a great ambassador of the sport, and I do like how sometimes he has an attitude. It just shows his emotion, out on his sleeve, who he is, and when he does something wrong, he blames himself, and when he blames somebody else, he goes to him and he talks to him, But at the end of the day, he loves every one of his competitors.
Mhm.
I can guarantee you that he loves every one of them, and he'll do anything in the world for them.
Well, and I think that he recognizes that because of them, it makes him better. I mean, you're only as good as your next best competitor. So, somebody comes up and they're trying to take his title away from him. That raises the bar for him too. So,
Oh, definitely.
understands that, gets that. Yeah.
And I always love to see matchups with him and Ron Capps. I mean,
Yeah.
always do, because at the end, if one way or the other, John's going to give Ron a kiss on the cheek.
And Ron knows it's coming too.
Oh, yes, he does. He definitely knows it's coming. Probably having a little issue with internet connection there. You might be getting text messages in as well, and that
I
might
might,
also.
yeah.
So she's getting some text messages. But one of the other things that we want to talk, we'll let her get reconnected. We want to talk a little bit about her grandfather and her father. They were both inductees of the Colorado Motorsports Hall of Fame. And, while we talk about, your father and grandfather being inducted, I wanted to post some pictures of them as well on the screen. So this right here would be John Bandimere Sr.
Yep.
On this car.
And that's such a great picture of him. In fact, I think I might be wrong, but I think that might be at Bakersfield. That picture was taken at Bakersfield because he was one of the first people who actually took a semi truck to a race, just because that's what he had available, and so that's what he took. So, but I love pictures like that with them. Yeah. Now that one right there, that's really interesting. My grandfather loved a car called the Renault 16. It was, I think it's a French maker. Anyway, but the 16 was the version or the model that he loved, and that car he actually used as a truck around the racetrack until it kind of fell apart, and then he decided to make it into a race car. He actually put like a blown Chevy engine in it, and it would not fit in the engine compartment.
You're muted.
Can you hear me now?
Gotcha.
Perfect. Good. But anyway, he would sit in the car, and I actually raced that car in the high school drags when I was in high school. And the funny thing is that, drag racing is all about consistency, right? And I'm not kidding you. Every time I would come back after making a run in that car, he would tinker with it. And it was never consistent. And I was like, Grandpa, I'm never going to win a race in this car because you just keep doing stuff to it. He's like, well, I wanted to go faster. I wanted to do this. I'm like, can you just leave it alone until after I'm done with this race? But I raced it a couple of times in high school drags. But
That's great.
He'd always had to mess with it. So.
And then I got some pictures of your dad.
Yes. Yep. Yep. And that's I love that picture too, from the top end of the racetrack looking down to the back, because one of the things that my grandfather built when he built when he built the racetrack back in 1958, the first thing that he built was a tower. The tower was circular, and it was originally supposed to be like a spark plug. He was building it so that it would look like a spark plug, and he never ended up putting the top on that tower because as things got busy with NHRA and having the national event and that kind of thing, we ended up pouring a concrete top on the tower and built another floor on top of it, and that ended up being our hospitality suite for many years. And so then the spark plug top would never fit on the top of the tower, so it never got put on the top of the tower. But it's so funny because when we did the renovation, my kids were little, my sister's kids were little, my brother's kids were little, and we were all excited because the tower was going to come down. And so we put together lunch, and we're all going to go out to the racetrack, and we're all going to hang there because this is going to be an all-day affair. My brother-in-law Larry gets in a front loader and takes the front of that front loader and takes it on the top of the tower, and within like 15 minutes the whole thing was gone. And we all were like, well, that wasn't very much fun. I mean, it came down so easy, and it was so funny. And then the new tower is the one that took place. But yeah, it was I love that picture because that's where the old tower really basically sat, was off to the east side, to the left side of my dad, or his right, but the left of the picture, and that's where the old tower used to sit. And my mom loved that tower because she ran the clocks, and it was so easy to see the cars, as they were coming around the corner and that kind of thing. But one of the unique things about our facility is that once you come out of the pit area and you start coming down into the staging lanes, you literally can just roll down because there's a decline. It brings you right down. So you don't have to fire up your car, come around a corner, do anything like that. You just coast it right down. And then when you get to the end of our racetrack, it also is an incline, that helps people slow down as well. So, that gives it. So we kind of the racetrack kind of comes down and then it levels off for the racetrack, but we've got it coming down at the very end too. So
that's pretty neat. That makes it really nice.
Yeah.
I have to fire your car up. You can keep it nice and cool at the temperature that you need it at. Here's a picture of the family.
Yes, and that's my dad and my mom in the front. And then on the right is my sister Jonna. Now I'm the oldest, so I'm on the left. And then my sister Jonna is on the right. And then my brother, John the third, is in the middle. So there's the five of us.
Now I wanted to get to some pictures of the track because, like I said, this place is just a beautiful facility to go race at and to visit and watch the national event.
Yeah, and it's interesting because our top eliminator club that sits, now there's the view from the top eliminator club, and that is one of the most beautiful views. We have about 750 seats in that top eliminator club, and we built that a couple of years after the renovation. It didn't happen with the renovation because we just had too many other things that we needed to get done, but they pretty much brought that thing in big, huge slabs and put it up on the side of the mountain. And after it has been sold out every year since probably the second year that we had it, because it's just a beautiful view. It's nobody ever has to stand up to see the end of the racetrack. You just sit in your seat, and then we've got a nice big pavilion on the back end with a tent, for the hospitality side of it and that kind of thing. But the theory of our racetrack on the left side, which is the pit side, the west side, is that we angled those seats so that really you should never, how when a car goes down the racetrack, everybody stands up, but
right,
really you should never have to do that at our racetrack because it's angled just slightly, ever so slightly, so that you don't ever have to stand up and watch the end of the racetrack.
I tell you what, I could sit there and look at that view all day long.
And we're close. Yeah, I mean, when you look at that, because I've been to a lot of races across the country, and sometimes the grandstands are so far away from the racetrack, but just because of the way that the mountain is built and because of where we sit, the grandstands are very close to the racetrack, which just provides even a more powerful experience for our guests when they're there for the race. Oh, that's a gorgeous photo. Oh my golly, that is just beautiful. Yeah, love that. Love that.
And it's definitely a beautiful place to go race and go out there and catch the Mopar Mile High Nationals,
Yeah.
which
Now
it'll be here before we know it.
well, isn't that the truth? I mean, once you flip the calendar, you're like, oh, we got 7 months, and then next thing you know, you're here. It is. But that last picture that you just had, I have a feeling that might have been taken at our Night of Fire and Thunder, which is our race that is, we call it like our season opener, and it's usually mid-May. And the unique thing about that event is that 27 years ago, I started a reading program for elementary age kids. When my dad was going through all of the process of rezoning, doing some rezoning and stuff when we had to do our renovation in 1988 and 89, one of the things is that he met with a lot of neighbors, and a lot of them did not understand what we did. They just thought that we just made a lot of noise and that we attracted a lot of riffraff, basically. And they were like, why would we approve new zoning for you to stay there and build something else? And it kind of bothered me. And so I thought, we need to be a little more involved in the community. I mean, not that we weren't, but, so I had my oldest daughter was going to kindergarten at the elementary school that literally was the closest school to the racetrack, right across the valley. It was called Rooney Ranch Elementary School, and Rooney Road is the road that runs right in front of us. So anyway, I started a reading program for elementary age kids where they had to turn in a certain amount of hours of reading, and they got a ticket for themselves and an adult to come to our Night of Fire and Thunder. And what it did is then parents brought their kids because their kids read, and they went, wow, this place is actually not what I thought it was, and then as the junior dragster program started progressing and we started featuring junior racers at the Night of Fire and Thunder, and parents are going, they have race cars for kids, my kids, elementary age kids, and that kind of thing. So again, the program just started on Monday. It's our 27th year. We have 55 schools involved in the program this year, and that amounts to several thousand kids that are involved in the program. And I don't require them to read anything specific because I just want them to read. I just want them to learn how to develop a love for reading. And so they read comic books, they read whatever it is that they read, but they have to turn in a certain amount of hours. And then they earn a ticket for themselves and an adult to come to the Night of Fire and Thunder. So that's a fun night. I'm telling you, we have so many new families and so many new people that come to that event.
And I tell you, I thank you for doing that with kids and helping them develop their reading skills. Because if you can't read, it's really rough for you out there. I mean, it really is, and you have to teach kids these new habits early in life. And I want to thank you for taking your time and doing that with them.
Well, and it's interesting because when my kids were in elementary school, it was just kind of second nature, and it was fun and that kind of thing. But now that we're actually in our second, almost into the third generation of kids that are involved in this Race to Read program, after 27 years, obviously. But what we're finding is that, especially boys, boys just have too many things going on in their life. So to sit down and read is like, yeah, whatever. They're not going to curl up with a book. But all of a sudden you teach them that, this guy that's got this race car, he couldn't have built this race car without reading. So not only is reading for fun, but reading is required. It's required for you to have fun too in some cases. And so then all of a sudden they kind of go, huh. And the program is a 6-week program. And the theory is that you can develop a habit in 3 weeks. So I get quite a few letters from parents saying that's what it took. Once my son started reading a chapter book, then he couldn't wait for the next book, and he couldn't wait for the next one and the next one. And then that's how it progresses. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I mean, a lot of fun. So.
Well, I tried one time to go to my son's school for math, and I was like, they were getting into decibels, and I was like, hey, I got the perfect idea. We can throw, dial-ins and make up a elapsed time and have to do the math using the reaction time and teach these kids. And they were going to have me come to the class, and sit down with the students and show them a little bit of why it's very important to know how to, do math with decibels. Because if you decide you want to go race, you got to be able to know those numbers. And you also have to throw in, well, the temperature's going up, the humidity, and and how you should subtract. I said I can use all of that and teach those kids how to do decibels and stuff. But unfortunately, that teacher left to go work at another school, so that's the reason why I never got to go do it. But it would have been fun. We would have had a great time at it.
But, in your defense on that whole thing, too, is that, about 3 years ago, I was asked to sit on a STEM advisory committee for our Jefferson County school system. And they called me and they said, would you be willing to, sit on this advisory committee for the STEM program? And I said, well, sure. Because I said, you do realize that that's what we do out at the racetrack, the science, technology, engineering, mathematics. We do all of that. It's just now it has a name. Now in the last 10, 15 years, it's like it's got a name. So now it's got importance, I guess, from that standpoint. But that's what we've done since day one. That's what drag racing is all about, So it's really kind of exciting. I got to sit in on the YES program in Gainesville. No, yeah, I think it was in Gainesville. We don't do the YES program physically at our race because the kids aren't in school. The students aren't in school in July. So it's really hard to pull them in, for that. So they do an online thing and then they get to come to the racetrack. But I really wanted to see what the presentation was all about and that kind of thing. And it's remarkable, all the things that racing can teach, and pick something, and allow the kids to learn from that standpoint. So I get a lot of field trip groups that want to come out to the racetrack and they want to measure this, or they want to try this, or they want to, do that kind of stuff. I'm like, sure, bring it out. I mean, we're here. So, you can do that.
Yeah, it's great to, and it's a feeder into our sport. They get out there and like, hey, this place is really cool. Mm-hmm. And they go back home. Hey, can we go out to the track? Next Saturday, they're going to have a race. Let's go see what it's like, and like I've told other people, I was like, it's, if you want to learn about racing, go to a ET bracket race, Correct. Go there, make sure you like it, and then follow it up by going to an NHRA national event. Mm-hmm. And you'll enjoy it a whole lot more. You'll get a little bit more understanding. And, I got real lucky at the Gators because I was asked by NHRA to promote street legal drags. And so I had a great time doing that, talking to the spectators and, telling them, hey, take a picture of that code, look it up later. And one of the kids is like, yeah, I've always thought about coming out here racing my car. Mm-hmm. And I was like, how old are you? He said, well, I'm 18. And I said, well, I would still bring a parent with you. But yeah, come out here on a test and tune night and, give you the opportunity to run your car up and down, the track and see if you like it. And then if you like it, you may want to start coming out here racing in the bracket series. I said, it's all about fun. I said, we have fun.
Yeah. One of the things too, what you were just saying about young people coming out to the track, one of the things when we have our high school drags is that we typically have some representatives from a local auto shop as well that come out, because there are some of these kids that are driving cars around around the city that are having issues with their cars and they don't know what's wrong with them. Then they
Right.
bring them out to the racetrack and they won't pass tech and then we're able to help them and show them, hey, do you realize that you've got a leak here? Or do you realize that this isn't functioning properly, or that kind of thing? And a lot of times, they just don't realize that they know they've got a problem, but they don't know really what it is. And so that is really helpful, for them as well, to finally be able to have somebody that knows what's wrong with their car. And of course, we won't let them down the track if it's not safe. So, sometimes we have to turn them around. But if
Right.
we can fix it for them while they're there, then it's like, wow, I went to the high school drags and they fixed my car, So that's kind of a cool thing, too.
Oh, definitely. And that's what I like about the race community. Everyone's always willing to jump in and help somebody out.
Mm-hmm.
I just love that part of our sport that we share. I mean, it may be, I've been in situations where my car won't start. Person I'm running, it's like, hey, you got 2 minutes. Try to get it fired up. I don't want to go down on a single. I want to race you. And the shoe's been on the other foot where I've had to wait on somebody else, almost to the point. If I had jumper cables, I would jump my competitor's car off to race. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And it's like that at every track throughout the nation.
Sure is. Uh-huh. Yes.
I want to talk a little bit. Y'all have the Dodge Power Brokers Mile High Nationals coming up in July. Are y'all going to do anything with y'all 65th anniversary? Is there different types of things that y'all going to add to that event?
Yeah, well, we had a staff meeting about 3-4 weeks ago to talk about some fun things that we could do on the play of 65. If you're the 65th person for this, or you're the 65th whatever to buy this or whatever. So we've got a couple of fun little things. We've got some fantastic souvenir items and merchandise items that we're gonna be rolling out. Our season starts April 14th, and we start with a couple of just test weekends because weather in Colorado can be a little iffy, and but we've got a few fun things that are going to happen. I do know that I'm going to have these decals for all the racers to put on their cars at our race. So I think that's going to be kind of a fun thing for us to see the representation and the support and that kind of thing. So I think that'll be a lot of fun. But yeah, I think we're going to roll out a few things here and there as we get closer to the actual date of it and the event of it. Every time we do an anniversary year, 50, 55, 60, 65, it's always just a barn burner of a year, as far as attendance goes, as far as souvenir sales and that kind of thing. So we're looking forward to it. I think it's going to be just as big.
Now, I didn't ask you, but I will, and you may not want to say it, but do you have a favorite in each category?
I don't know that I would have like a favorite, but there are certain people that I would like to see, win, or to see, I do. I don't know that I don't know that I want to say favorite, because I think they're all great, but there's
Right.
certain people that you kind of think, I just wish that person could win a championship, because they've just knocked at the door for so many years. And I would love to see Doug Coletta win in Top Fuel. I would love to see him get a championship in Top Fuel.
And he's deserved it. He's put the time in.
He certainly has, and I think that would be awesome. And I'm good friends with the Tasca family, so it would be real fun to see Bob Tasca get a championship as well, and take that into the into a new year with the number one on his car. But no, I I try not to play too many favorites with people. You know, I'm always kind of an underdog kind of a person. I don't know how you are about that kind of stuff, but I love people that win all the time because then that just adds to the excitement of the sport. But then I also like these, you know, like Cameron Caruso winning this last weekend. I was just
Right.
like, oh, where did that come from? But, you know, and I think in her heart of hearts, she's probably wondering the same thing. She's like, did I really pull that off? You know, I haven't had a chance to really talk to her about that, but you know, I mean, she's a hard worker and she knew it was going to come, but then once it happens, you're just going, really? Really? You know, I think that her interview at the top end was you could tell she was a little shell shocked, you know, and it's like, oh man, if I could do that all over again, I think I would do better.
I get a kick out of her because there was some videos of her. I think it was on Saturday. She was in these little cars driving around the pits, you know. she's just like a kid at heart, and she loves having fun. And we've had her on as a guest last year, and just an amazing kid. You know, comes from a racing family, a real good family, and that's not going to be her one and only race win. I can tell you that because she is very determined to fight for a championship this year, and she's in a good place. I mean, already with a win, and that's what they're going to be fighting for. And you know, and speaking of pro stock, I know Erica pretty well, Erica Anders, and I know she is just dying to win at your track because your track in Gainesville are the only two tracks left that she has not won in a pro stock.
Well, I'll tell you what, when they come to our racetrack, whatever combination they have for the other 20 races that they go to, they can just throw out the window because there's nothing that's the same about their combination at those tracks as it is about ours. The other side of it is that if you win at our racetrack, you have truly earned it. You really have truly fought your way to it. It wasn't just, you know, not that any other win is not a fight. That's
Right.
not what I'm trying to say, but you really feel like, oh my goodness, you know, this was a lot of work and we did it, you know? So I think that's kind of a cool thing.
Yeah, I know she really wants to check that box off this year, and pretty much like she wanted to do this year at Gainesville, but you know, just a weird situation, you know, going out there, getting ready to go in a water box, and a car doesn't fire up.
Yeah.
They pull it back to the pits, put it on a Pro-Jacks, it fires right up.
Yep.
You know, and Gainesville's just been, you know, a little bit of a thorn in her side. The year before, she lost against Bo Butner.
Uh-huh.
And she broke the, what was it, the ET record. Set a national record, but lost the race because she got beat on a hole shot.
Yeah.
You know, so, but she's definitely right now. I know they're struggling a little bit, but you can't count them out. You cannot. That's a hard-working team over there.
It definitely is the right place, right time kind of sport, isn't it?
It is. And when it's your day, it's your day.
You can go from hero to zero and nothing flat. It's a very humbling sport, that's for sure.
It sure is.
Uh-huh.
Well, I want to thank you, Ms. Bandimere, for coming on tonight and talking about Bandimere Speedway and y'all 65th anniversary. And I'm hoping that y'all have a packed house.
You know,
I really do.
We always have a good turnout. We've just got such great fans, great people. And, you know, our full schedule is on our website, which is bandimere.com. So that's easy. And we do, you know, online ticket sales and that kind of thing. So yeah, make sure you come out this year and just come see us. And we'd love to share our 65th anniversary with everybody.
And if they don't make it, they're going to miss out on a great opportunity. I want
Thank
to
you.
put that there.
Yeah.
But, I'm glad that your track is thriving. And unfortunately, Phoenix is now a thing of history.
Yeah.
And it's kind of sad. But at the
Yeah.
same time, we're having other tracks come back, like Route 66.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
but
That's exciting. That's going to be really exciting. In fact, I really wanted to go to that, but that's the same weekend as our Night of Fire and Thunder. So all my little Race to Read kiddos will be there. And, it's a little hard to run a program and then bail at the last minute. So I'll be watching it from nhra.tv, and doing it that way. But yeah, I'm excited that they went back to Chicago. I think that's going to be awesome.
well, I'll tell you what, if you ever have any information that you would like me to post, just send me an email and I'll get it put on our page and we'll promote it on our end as much as possible.
Sounds good. And thank you so much for allowing me to share our family story. I really appreciate it.
No problem. It was a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you. There goes Miss Bandimere. I tell you what a great opportunity to have her on tonight. And I want to thank everyone for joining in and watching the show tonight. And we'll be live streaming race 5 and race 6 this weekend at Gainesville Raceway. So if you don't have anything to do but still can't make it out to the track, look us up on the Spot Motorsports Media, and we will be live at 10 o'clock in the morning both days. Thank you and have a great evening.